flight schools are starting to say a bit more, what can we do upfront to reduce our washout rates and increase the satisfaction from the customers as well, because people don't get through the training, they might head online, go to the forums, start complaining. We've even heard of some cases where there's parents trying to sue flight schools as well when their kids aren't getting through, because they're saying, well, you took our money, you said we'd get this course, why hasn't my child now got a license at the end? So wouldn't it be better perhaps to let those people know up front what their chance of success is before they make that investment?
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Right Rudder Marketing Aviation Business Podcast. If you are here for the first time, this is a podcast for flight school owners and aviation business people. We're very happy to have you on the show here today, whether you're listening to this in the future on maybe iTunes or Spotify or on YouTube or anywhere out there, in any of those platforms. We're so happy that we have you here today. Before we get started on our show, I do want to do some quick introductions and housekeeping stuff. So first off, if you are listening to this and you're a flight school owner, check out rightruddermarketing.com. We are a marketing agency. We help flight schools all across the country grow and scale their businesses. It's been quite a journey. We've helped a lot of schools, dozens of schools across the country, from Florida all the way to California, even internationally. We've helped schools grow and scale their businesses. So if you are looking for marketing or need any help, check out rightruddermarketing.com. Our phone number is 314-804-1200. Also, on the same vein there, if you have a compelling story to share, maybe you have a very great product or service that you have that you're helping flight schools, helping ab initio programs, helping the industry, I highly ask you to give us a message that we can be a guest on the podcast. Check it out, info@rightruddermarketing.com. You also got our phone number again, 314-804-1200. So we're so happy to get that going. Lastly, but not least, as housekeeping things, we did just recently start what's called a Facebook group. So we have a Facebook group that we started a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago. It's called the Flight School Owners Lounge, Pilot Lounge. I highly recommend checking it out. Join the community. We have these sessions. We have podcasts, we have webinars, we do in-person events. Check out our Facebook group. It's highly recommended. We're going to be adding a lot of content in there. That's just really another place for flight school owners to network with one another. That's really the main thing we're pushing for, is providing a platform and a space for everyone to interact with each other and really give the best tips, best practices to run a flight school in the best, most efficient, best profit, and has the most efficiency and safety involved type of operation. So check it out, join the group, and start collaborating, start discussing with other flight school owners. If you have some stuff going on in your local airport, some challenges, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to try to offer assistance, and maybe some other flight school owners might be able to give you some good advice. So, all right, without further ado, let's get started with today's episode. We have a very special guest today, so I don't, like usual, I never try to, do the full introduction. I try to let the guests speak on their own. But we have Caroline here today. Caroline is joining us all the way from UK. So thank you for staying up very late for us. Really quick, can you give us a quick introduction about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your company and what you're representing?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me, Tim. I'm super happy to be here. So my name is Caroline Creane. I'm an aviation psychologist, certified with European Association of Aviation Psychology. My background's in occupational psychology, so workplace or industrial psychology, and in psychometric testing. So I've been at Symbiotics for 11 years now. We're a human performance company, specializing, of course, in aviation. We've been around for about 30 years, of course, based in the UK, as you can tell from my accent there. And we provide psychometric testing for a whole range of aviation roles. So we do cadets, pilots, instructors, but also cabin crew, maintenance as well. Also provide other psychological services, so things like interviewer and assessor training, support with compliance to regulations, looking at organizational culture change, where maybe an airline wants to, transform form that culture with him. So I'm involved day to day in developing our psychometric tests, and most of all, supporting flight schools and airlines throughout that whole process of implementing a really efficient selection program there.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about Symbiotics then. So Symbiotics, you've been 30 years in making, been there for 11 years. Wow, it's great. It's long. It's a long time to be working. I think the longest job I've had was maybe 5 years, 4 years. I guess yeah. So how does psychometric testing and all that stuff kind of fit into aviation as a whole? We'll start at kind of big picture, then kind of drill down to specific, parts of the pie. So you have, for example, flight schools, which is kind of what we're talking about today. But there's more involved in that. There's also airlines 121 stuff as well. But how does psychometric testing fit? And is that the main service Symbiotics provides, or is there anything else that you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's definitely our main sort of service, our kind of bread and butter. Psychometric testing in aviation goes back a really long time, actually. So aviation was one of the first fields where psychometrics first kicked off around World War One. Then when they were looking for fighter pilots, they were looking for these really stable people. They were starting to think about how can we find which people are going to be the right fit for this role. So it has been around for nearly 100 years. In that time, it's changed, of course. So starting very much with the military, but then as time has gone on, more looking at commercial and of course flight training there as well. So we're very much in the business of that. Our psychometrics are used in more than 80 countries now, 130 or more different locations. So we're supporting that whole journey from students going into flight schools, but also then, them joining the airlines, going for their command, moving into an instructor role. We really cover that whole service. So we do provide the psychometrics. We have our platform, Adapt, where all of the tests sit, but we're also about that support of clients. And, it maybe they're introducing psychometrics for the first time and they don't quite know, what to do or how to implement that effectively. We've got a whole team of psychologists and tech support who can really help with that journey, sort of, from cradle to grave almost there.
So for Symbiotics, the main kind of bread and butter here is the ADAPT program, and it's not only just a psychometric testing thing. There's also software involved with it, and there's also assistance. I guess when you're reporting this out to the flight school owner and also the operations, I guess for 121 stuff. Is that correct, or is there? I guess so. How did you? What is ADAPT a acronym for something, or is there a reason or a meaning to it?
So Adapt is our platform, and I like to think that we are Adapt is what we are, but Adapt is what we do as well. So our platform has a lot of different tests in it, but we take a really flexible approach that's all about adapting to what the client or what the customer needs. And of course, for pilots, adapting is a huge part of their role as well. So, a lot of the skills and traits that we're looking for are also around adapting as well. So I think that's why the name sort of fits really, really nicely in what we do there. But yeah, it's our testing platform. So everything runs off our system. It runs online, so you don't need necessarily any kind of special local software. It all sort of operates from a web link, and that's really key for us to being able to support clients like globally as well. And, clients that might also have their own students coming from lots of different international locations. It's really handy to have everything in this one sort of self-contained platform there.
So let's kind of dive into, I guess, the test itself. What is psychometric testing, and how does it benefit or help the aviation industry as a whole? So I have in the notes here, we're testing for aptitude, personality, some non-technical skills. Can you kind of get more in depth with us and talk about a little bit what that means as far as like what questions are you guys actually asking these candidates? Like what do, so for example, I'm a student, let's say I'm a student pilot. What should I be on the lookout? Obviously, I don't want to change my personality, but what certain things are out there that maybe employers or I don't know, people that would be running these tests are looking for, and how do I become a successful candidate if I was to take a psychometric test?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all of our tests are designed with the core ICAO pilot competencies in mind. So, there's already this fantastic framework that says, here's all the behaviors that we want pilots to show in order to be effective in their role. So, your situation awareness, your decision making, leadership, teamwork, etc. When you think of somebody kind of going into training for the first time, they might not necessarily have those skills yet. They may never have flown an aircraft. So, how do we know whether they are going to be able to get the manual control down? How do we know that they're going to be able to manage their workload effectively in the cockpit environment without actually putting them through the training? We don't necessarily know about those skills. What we can measure, though, is upfront certain traits, certain abilities that do predict how well somebody is likely to be able to go on and perform those things. So here we're looking at knowledge. So, your maths and physics, for example, going into the foundation theory training, it's important to have that knowledge to build on. We're looking at aptitude, so more like natural abilities, psychomotor skills, somebody's ability to process information and deal with a multitasking environment where they've got lots of different things going on. And then, of course, personality and behavior as well. So as you've kind of alluded to, you can't, change your personality necessarily. You can't wake up tomorrow and decide to be a completely different person, but there are certain traits that make better pilots. Certain things like emotional stability, being able to work effectively within a team, being able to adapt and be flexible in a changing situation. All of these kind of traits are tied into how successful someone's going to be in the pilot role later on. So that's what our test platform is designed to measure. We do that through a variety of tests. So we have things like our cognitive reasoning test, which looks at those sort of basic mental abilities, like how fast can you process new information, how much can you hold in your memory at any one time, those kind of things. We look at then we call sort of composite mental abilities, so that's applying those skills under a particular situation then. So multitasking, doing lots of things at once, applying your memory and your processing under pressure, all of those kind of areas, and the psychomotor skills as well. So we have a couple of joystick tests that involve lots of coordination, control, hand-eye dexterity. It's all about looking at that ability to learn and kind of go on and sort of acquire those skills throughout the training. And then, as I mentioned, obviously the personality traits, how motivated somebody is, whether they've got the necessary self-discipline to manage the demands of the course. And we're looking at those through personality questionnaires. So candidates then can expect to answer questions about themselves. How do they typically behave? What motivates them? How do they approach different situations? Those are the kind of things they can expect to come up against there.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I've noticed too is as far as like the written exam for FAA, there's a big, I don't want to say big, but there's a significant chunk of questions that deal with ADM and CRM, so aeronautical decision making and crew resource management. And a lot of things that they've been really pushing towards the student pilot population recently are these like hazardous attitudes, for example, decision making tools like the DECIDE model, for example. So hazardous attitudes, like what do you call it, macho or something like that, resignation, things like that. So just the reason I bring this up is because if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone has never done flight training, but let's say I'm starting to enter into a training program and they ask me to go through a psychometric test. How do I, as the student pilot, get a really good score? So I'm just curious to know, is some of these things that you're assessing on, like personality and competencies, are they based on kind of this, hazardous attitude, CRM stuff, ADM stuff, or is it something completely different? Maybe it's research-based psychology stuff that's completely not even in the FAA stuff that we would typically read.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a bit of both. It all sort of links in together, really. So you mentioned the hazardous attitudes. That is one of the things that we look at in our personality questionnaire. And we're looking at, the potential to have some of those risk-taking behaviors. So some people are more naturally, I guess, reluctant to follow instructions, that anti-authority attitude. Some people just don't like being told what to do. Aviation's probably not the right sort of field for those people. There's going to be lots of rules and the regulations to follow. So yeah, yeah, it's looking at those kind of natural tendencies. You mentioned CRM. Obviously, CRM, is a set of sort of behaviors and ways that we expect somebody to behave with their crew, their fellow teammates, how to share information. So we're not necessarily assessing that at the student stage because they haven't necessarily learned those principles yet. But again, there's certain aspects of personality that might sort of tie into that. Some people are more communicative than others. Under pressure, people behave in different ways. Some people are naturally more inclined to that team environment. So we're looking at those kind of traits that will then go on to influence how well somebody, sort of develops those CRM skills. So, a student going through a psychometric for their first time shouldn't be necessarily worried that they're going to be asked a load of aviation specific things that they haven't been trained on yet. It's more about their natural ability, their natural way of doing things, how they approach different tasks, the skills and experiences they've sort of acquired in life so far. That's a little bit more what we're looking at there.
Yeah, I mean, just my fear is that people get really scared about tests. So I know, one of the things that we do at Rudder Marketing, we do it's called the concierge service, and we basically answer the phone for flight schools. So we have a few flight schools we do this for, and some of the questions or some of the people that we talk to that are calling these flight schools, yeah, I got 50 hours, did my solo already, or I haven't done my solo yet, working on some cross countries. I haven't done my written exam yet, or it's like, come on, you have to get your exams done. Then they're very apprehensive about it. So adding another layer, not only you have your medical exam, you have your FAA written exam, and now if it's just to get into the school, you have to take a psychometric exam. My fear is that one is that they're not going to do it, and two, it might kick people. I mean, this is just playing devil's advocate here. It might kick people out of the of the cohort that might have been great pilots, but because they couldn't pass this test, instantly we assessed them on hey, you got a score and say 50%. You didn't get the physics questions right, and your personality seems to be very dominant and not very communicative. Therefore, we don't want to accept you in the school. That's something that I fear from, I don't know, just a student pilot perspective. Maybe it's from the flight owner perspective, it might be great because maybe this guy was, a butthole. What did Dan, the other guy? So Dan, by the way, is our producer. Here's our video guy. He was helping set up the cameras earlier, and he said there's a word that they say in UK to as an insult, like Bernard or something like that. I forgot what it was. but we don't want to rule people out of flight training if they just off a test. Potentially, maybe it was right, or maybe the converse of this is that hey, this test assessed. It's predicting the future. You probably are not the best candidate for flight training, and the psychometric test is showing that. What's your kind of take on this? I mean, just out of curiosity. There's two sides of the coin here.
Yeah, I think there's probably a number of points there to address. The first one being that ADAPT is not a sort of pass-fail mechanism. So we don't say to a flight school that you have to reject people that score, below 50% on this measure, for example. It's very much in the hands of the flight school, how they want to manage the information. So I can give you a couple of examples. For example, in the US, a couple of flight schools we work with. So one of them does the ADAPT test up front. They don't screen anybody out. They don't reject anybody based on it, but they go into the training with a bit of a report then that says this person might struggle on X, Y, and Z, and they can kind of pinpoint then, what training resources is that person going to need, maybe what instructor can I pair them with to get the best out of them. So they're using it as more of a sort of developmental kind of plan. And then to give another example, another US flight school we work with, they use the report as more of a kind of debrief going in to sort of achieve a bit of informed consent, I guess, from the candidate's point of view. So, they don't reject anybody from the training, but they've got a report there. They can say, okay, you've got this really strong motivation to be a pilot. You've scored a little bit below average in, say, your processing speed. So while we're happy to have you on the course, you might want to think about that you maybe could struggle a little bit later on when the workload becomes more demanding in training. So that person then is able to make a decision. Do I want to invest $100,000 or whatever in my training when I know there's a risk I might not be successful? Or maybe I'm going to go away, work for 12 months to kind of improve some of my areas of weakness, and then go into the training when I feel like fully ready for that. So it's very much not just a pass or fail. We're not sort of in the business of crushing people's dreams, certainly, but we want them to feel informed going into that decision. And we did a bit of research actually a year or two ago. We were looking at like generational differences and attitudes to training with Gen Z, and how does that compare to some of the older generations? And we did a bit of research there to ask them how they felt about psychometric testing, and the results were really positive. So most of them saw a benefit to having this upfront kind of idea of their strengths and weaknesses that they could take into the training with them then. So that's my vision, is that we're not having this rigid yes or no, but we're supporting everybody to make better decisions, not just for the school, but also for the candidate as well.
Awesome. On that note, I also do this. I do the same thing too for like my business. I don't employ Symbiotics maybe yet, but maybe we should in the future. But for me personally, before we hire any team members on the Right Rudder marketing crew, I have a personality assessment or quiz that I have. It's kind of a fun quiz that we do, but it's a 3-part test. It does a Colby assessment, which is kind of ranks people on, I don't know if you heard what Colby is, but it does it like fact finder versus fact finder versus quick start versus follow through, then I think versus something else as well. Then we also do the Myers-Briggs, which is like the 16 type personalities. So like introvert versus extrovert, those type of things. And then last we do a DISC assessment, which kind of rates people on gives them a color. Are they a red person, a green person, yellow, blue? And I kind of take this, and I do use it actually for me. I really want to have a lot of people that are high follow through. And do a lot of research and are detailed oriented, just because for marketing, and there's a lot of AI out there, we don't want to be posting out content that's hallucinating or something like that. So we want to make sure they're detailed oriented and they follow through, because we have a lot. One of the challenges I had in my business as well is that we'd have all these initiatives, all these projects that we start up, whether it's a Facebook group like I mentioned earlier, or a magazine. We tried a magazine last year. I kind of want to start that back up again, but it's hard because the execution and follow through is always lacking sometimes. Like we started up, but then we never follow through. So for me, when I'm hiring people, I'm like, okay, I want to find someone that has a high follow through. I'm like this. So yeah, this is my example of what we do. We do like a quick. Just a test here, and it tells us it gives a score of their dominant, red, yellow, green, blue, whatever it is. But obviously, this is way lower tier compared to Symbiotics. I think Symbiotics it's been tested by psychotherapists. This is very, I took some practice tests and basically plopped them into some code and then ran it. But it's a good indicator, but I don't give it 100% truth here. It's home build. All right, sorry, that was me going off on just psychometric testing for a bit. I do want to do some housekeeping here. So we do have a good crowd going. We have about 17 people on the show, either on YouTube, Facebook, wherever they are, Riverside here. And there is we do want this to be collaborative, so we want this to be a discussion as well. We have an expert in the house here, Miss Caroline. She has been with Symbiotics for 11 years and has been doing a great job. On the right over there, I think it's either on the right or on the very bottom, there should be a window or a button for chats and stuff like that. You can, if you are an audience member and you want to ask a question about the aviation industry as a whole, psychometric testing, maybe how to implement this at your flight school, whatever challenges you might have that you would like to have a psychologist and Symbiotics to answer, please leave in the chat here. We do have Tom, and I think I know which Tom this is, but Tom has asked a question here, and we were talking a little bit about implementing psychometric testing at a flight school, and then that's when the question was asked, and it's he's asking about, can you give us some data or statistics about the effectiveness of your testing? So yeah, I'll let Caroline kind of take over from here. But do you have any data regarding your psychometric testing and implementing it at a flight school? What are some of the results you've seen as you've done that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just going back to kind of the start of ADAPT, it was validated with military pilots first of all. So they used the tool there to predict training success. So it was kind of developed on that foundation that a lot of aviation researchers used, starting in the military population and then expanding that a little bit further. In terms of some of the clients we work with, so we've found that particularly combination of sort of cognitive ability, so looking at how somebody processes information, and then personality traits, so looking at things like how conscientious they are. So like you were saying, Tim, that kind of follow through. Does somebody commit to what they're going to do and continue on that path? Also kind of neuroticism, so you've got your stress management, those kind of traits. So those sort of behaviors and traits together have shown a really strong predictive validity in predicting training success. To speak to some of our clients, I know some of them have got their washout rates sort of down below 5%, so they have 95% training success rate. So, using the screening, they are really picking the people that are most likely to be successful. And another sort of really good marker of success recently, we had feedback from one of our clients in India. So they, the DGCA there, their regulatory body, has kind of school rankings to compare different metrics. So this school we were working with was 19th place in the ranking. After they put ADAPT in, they're now second place because they've been able to establish a real sort of quality system. And again, they're getting those pass rates through. The regulators are seeing the benefits of having this kind of rigorous approach. So I think it speaks for itself in that point of view. But we do have a bunch of fantastic client testimonials on the website as well that will kind of give you a bit more flavor of those successes that we've had.
That's insane. So, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that I've seen in the flight school industry is, washout rates. So we have a lot of people that, and we've done a few videos, I think me and my team, about, we call it like the 80% rule or something, like 80% of people wash out, So technically we're kind of filtering at the front of the funnel rather than towards the end of the funnel. So we're still filtering it away. It's not really, you could say it's 95% pass-through rate, but it's also, we cut probably a lot of people in the beginning steps, I suppose, before they were even in the program. So I guess it's a great testament of, hey, who are the right people for pilot training? It's not everybody. I don't agree that it's everybody. I think everybody has the opportunity to do flight training.
Yeah,
however, I don't think it's, there's certain people in my life where I'm like, I don't think you'd be the best pilot. So maybe, and it's not an easy thing to tell them because they might want to do it. And in that case, having objective data, say, hey, this is your score on these tests. This is what we don't know. We don't feel that you might be successful. Maybe you will be successful in another place, but not here. So that's definitely a good kind of take on there. So talk to us about the ADAPT program. So it's kind of been implemented in the military. Is that what you're saying? It's been implemented in militaries. Airlines as well, I suppose. It's also been implemented in airlines.
Yeah,
and now
absolutely.
we're kind of getting into the next level, which is flight schools. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the military was kind of the initial validation. Then airlines, very established using these kind of processes for a long time. So we have a lot of airline clients, but probably about 40%, I want to guess, of our clients are flight schools as well. And some of those we've been working with for a long time already. But we're probably getting more and more inquiries every week from different flight schools who haven't a history of doing this kind of testing and getting more interested in it. So there does seem to be that nice uptick in the industry there as well, where, I think the benefits are being more and more apparent, and flight schools are starting to say a bit more, what can we do upfront to reduce our washout rates and increase the satisfaction from the customers as well, because people don't get through the training, they might head online, go to the forums, start complaining.
No, we don't like that.
Exactly. We've even heard of some cases where there's parents trying to sue flight schools as well when their kids aren't getting through, because they're saying, well, you took our money, you said we'd get this course, why hasn't my child now got a license at the end? So wouldn't it be better perhaps to let those people know up front what their chance of success is before they make that investment?
Yeah, it's like my little Billy can't do a stall. That's why he didn't get a certificate. Okay. Let's take a small pivot here. So one of the questions that was on the notes here was talking about the partnership between Flight School Association International / Flight School Association North America, so FSANA, FSI. I think we've seen you guys a few times many times actually at these events. So kind of walk us through what your partnership with them and what kind of benefit, if you are part of Flight School Association, what is some of the benefits that you can get being a member of a Flight School Association, and how does Symbiotics play a part in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think kind of tacked onto this a little bit, although it's a different organization, you've also got the International Aerospace Accrediting Commission. They're building their accreditation program for flight schools, and particularly schools that are focused on helping students to become career pilots. And the standard that they're setting with the accreditation does mean that there has to be some kind of pre-screening. Doesn't necessarily mean that anybody has to be prevented from enrolling. It's more about that upfront understanding of, has that student got a reasonable opportunity to pass. So with their accreditation program, then anybody that comes through FSAI or IAAC to us at Symbiotics, we do have a discount program that we can offer on the testing. So we've been working with FSAI for 3 to 4 years now. We've got a great relationship with them. They've sent quite a few flight schools our way already, and we've been able to guide them through that process and get them set up with that implementation. And as the IAC accreditation is going to be the first aviation accreditor to be recognized by the US Department of Education, which is super exciting. So we're hoping we can continue to kind of strengthen that process and help more flight schools achieve that standard, which of course the pre-screening is part of as well. They certainly don't have to come with us at ADAPT, but like I say, there is a nice little discount in there when they do, and we've obviously got the experience there helping guide that journey there as well.
Let's talk about accreditation. That's a good topic for a bit. A lot of schools want to get accreditation because they want to be able to get access to those sweet Sallie Mae loans, right? I mean, so as part of, and I apologize for my ignorance here, is having kind of a pre-testing program one of the requirements for an accredited flight school?
Yes, so right? it is one of the criteria for the IAAC to have some kind of pre-assessment screening there. Like I say, it doesn't mean that they have to use a select out method, but just some kind of pre-screening, so they've got an idea of who is going into that training pipeline. And that's really just about maintaining that quality of training, having the objective data to sort of support keeping that high standards, being committed to ongoing improvement. It is really about sort of the pre-assessment being one part of that bigger picture of quality management there.
Yeah, so I guess if you are trying to get access to the Sallie Mae loans and you want to be accredited, this is one of the challenges you're going to have to face is you need some type of pre-screening program, and Symbiotics is a great partner. If you are a member of Flight School Association, highly recommend checking out Symbiotics. Yeah, so okay, so we went over kind of the what you do, kind of what the ADAPT program is. I guess let's talk about kind of the mission and vision of Symbiotics. So I guess one of the reasons that you go to the Flight School Association is to work with flight schools, correct? Is that kind of what your main, I guess, campaigns is towards, is to try to partner with flight schools, or is there another part of the bigger mission and vision that we're missing here?
Yeah, absolutely. It is about partnering with flight schools, and we obviously have services that we can certainly offer. I think my personal vision as a psychologist, I love data. I thrive on data, and psychometrics is a big part of that. What we want to see more and more is partnerships with flight schools. So it's not just that they're taking our services, but actually giving us some feedback with the training data. We can create a bit of a system then when we feed that data back into our system, and that strengthens the predictors that we're looking at as well. So it's really about kind of building those partnerships where we can help you improve your training process, your washout rates, but also we use that data then to improve our system and really pinpoint exactly what are those factors that are predicting success, not just for pilots generally, but at your particular flight school. So I guess that's a little bit of our vision of how I'd like to grow for the future. Now, I think we've already got our sort of experience in the industry with the 30 years there and the client base. That's all fantastic, but it'd be nice to take sort of more and more the next step of having these kind of collaborative partnerships with flight schools there as well. And that's something we're also getting more people approaching us saying, like, we've got loads of data, what do we do with it? Can you do something with it? And that's really exciting for us.
one of the things, so Raul, our producer, who's in the background kind of messing around with the, what do you call it, screens and stuff like that, he has shared kind of the features of this ADAPT program and aptitude testing here. And one of the things that was out there was the anti-cheating remote invigilation feature available. Okay, I want to bring this up just because I was watching this video the other day, and it was a candidate going through like a job interview, and it was in person. It was a digital interview, so it's a Zoom call or something similar to this. You know, we had a video camera or whatever, and then this person had, I guess, like a little dongle, and he attached it to his computer, and it was taking AI notes. And basically, as the interviewer was giving them questions, he'd get the answer, and then like feed it to the interviewer. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times here with AI and other tools out there. What are some of the anti-cheating mechanisms that you have, and what's your kind of take on using AI as far as running through flight training, whether it's through the psychometric test or through actual actual skills and to fly and stuff like that? So kind of a broad question here, but yeah, what's the impact on AI as far as the anti-cheating stuff, and how does it impact also the flight training environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good question. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to AI. We've got to try and stay on top of that. Some of the anti-cheating mechanisms we already have in place. So we have huge question banks, so that we're making sure that not all the questions are out there and people are getting the same questions and things like that, because we know people share tips and hints on how to pass these processes. Of course, we've got certain tech in place there as well, just to control what the individual sort of can do within the test. They have to sort of sit it in one go. You mentioned the remote invigilation services there. I think probably in the US you'd probably use the word proctoring. So that's a kind of
okay.
Yeah, video system basically.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, one of those nice differences between British English and US English, completely different terms for some reason. But yeah, we have a service there where you can have all the candidates, if they're doing the test remotely from their home locations, you can monitor them all on the sort of same screen, make sure they are who they say they are, they're doing what they should be doing, and that sort of thing there as well. AI obviously is becoming more and more of a challenge, so we're sort of fighting to stay on top of that. We're exploring some really cool stuff like eye tracking. So there's a real thing that if you're not focusing on what you're doing, if you've got an AI running something on the side, your gaze is going to keep shifting to that AI. So we're looking at having some embedded eye tracking. I'm not a technical person, by the way, so probably can't go into a load of depth on that, but yeah, just to kind of catch out maybe some of those anomalies, because it is a very real concern. I've had exactly what you've described there. I had an interview for a student with a flight school. I don't know exactly what service they were using, but they were asking me to repeat back all of the questions. They'd wait a few seconds, and then they'd give me a completely scripted answer. Didn't match any of their experiences. Their language completely shifted. They were giving some really generic example about a supermarket they worked in, but they couldn't tell me the name of the supermarket. So although we've got people trying to cheat with AI, I'm not quite sure it's where people think it is either. It's very much a tool, but it's only as good as the information that you feed into it as well. So that kind of brings us on to AI, I guess, more in terms of the testing side. And I think AI, it is probably going to open some sort of fantastic avenues for us there. Again, we're getting a lot more people approaching us and saying, as a flight school, they've got some kind of AI system that they're using. Can they feed our reports into it and use that to sort of, give development advice or whatever that might be? And the answer would be yes, absolutely, of course. We're certainly interested in kind of pursuing that ourselves, looking at different opportunities there. But I would adopt a cautious approach, because if you don't quite know, what the system is doing under the hood, so to speak, how do you know that the information you're getting at the other end is accurate? So I personally don't think we should rush to use some of these new technologies until we've got enough evidence, validating their success. So at the moment, our system is all, run on developments that humans have put in place. There may be some AI add-ons in the future, but we're being very careful with what we put forward and what we recommend to our users there.
I love that. The eye tracking thing's so real, and even right now. So like, I'm not cheating, but I do have my notes over here. Then I have the camera right there, so I have to look this way. But actually, the screen is this way, so my eyes are kind of going. And I've trained myself, because I've been on video a decent amount, to always try to look at the camera as much as possible. Whether it's we're meeting with flight schools, whether I'm meeting with business, whatever vendors and stuff like that. If I'm on a Zoom call, I'm always looking at the camera, rather than around the screen.
Are you looking at the camera?
I'm looking at the camera.
I just wanted to make sure because I heard you. Okay, all right, sorry.
Looking at the camera. I gotta look at the camera here.
Dan. I'm his producer, by the way. Good job. Good job.
And then what happens is we were doing an interview one time.
Wait a second. He's not being a. Okay, good. You don't want to
That's the magic British insult that we talked about earlier.
That's the word we're talking
For
about
those
earlier.
of you
There's
that
a
don't
word
know.
for this, right? There's an interview I was on. I was the interviewer, and then there's a candidate, and I could just tell in the middle of it, he was always like looking on the side here, and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't seem very legitimate to me. I don't know. If you can't produce the words by yourself, I mean, I agree. Have your own notes. Like I do have my own notes here for Caroline and also Symbiotics, but you want to be authentic. You want to be as true to yourself. So AI is a tool. Use it well. But yeah, don't overly rely on it. Otherwise, you kind of get dumb here. So that's kind of our take on AI. We love it, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the vision with working with flight schools in the future and implementing ADAPT program here. Our audience is, we are kind of coming towards, we're at 40 minutes now. One of the things I like to do towards the second half or last quarter of the podcast is really do some call to actions and also kind of talk about how your services or your product can really benefit the flight schools out there. So if I was a flight school and I wanted to implement the ADAPT program with Symbiotics at my flight school, what are some of the steps I would need to do in order to do this? What's like the onboarding? What's the kind of process, 30, 60, 90-day plan, 12-month program? What's kind of the overall, layout if I want to implement this in my school?
Absolutely. So firstly, I'd say hopefully easier than a lot of people think. We've had some very, very quick requests from clients that need to get a program basically up and working yesterday. And we're very used to moving quickly to make that happen. But yeah, just to tell you a little bit about that process. So firstly, of course, the website link is there. Do drop us an email through the contact form. Our sales team will be very happy to jump on a call with you. We always start off by trying to just understand a bit more about your needs. Our services are not one size fits all. It's not a single off-the-shelf solution. So we really want to work with you to understand, what are some of the challenges that your flight school faces? Are there particular reasons that you have, certain trends of failures in your training that you're seeing? Obviously work with you to understand any timing constraints and budget constraints, of course, because price is normally one of the first questions that people ask as well. We work on a sort of pay-as-you-go system, so there's no kind of upfront setup costs. You pay per candidate or sort of per login code to the system. So once we've got a picture of who you are and what you want, we can make recommendations then of what sort of test battery we think is most useful for you. That could be just a single test if you're looking to put something really quick and simple in, maybe just a multitasking screening tool might be a sort of simple first step, or we can put in a full 7 test battery with your multitasking, your maths, your physics, your personality. Really depends on your need there. Once we've got the contract up and running, it's normally a week or 2 to get everything set up, and then everything is managed through our sort of ADAPT online platform. So you get access to a sort of portal. All of your candidates, you can kind of follow the candidate journey in there, see where students are at with their testing, see how many accesses you've got left, how many codes you've got left, that sort of thing. And once the student has done a test, it spits out a report basically within 5 minutes. So super quick. It'll be available on the system straight away. We also have what we call like the matrix report. So that's a spreadsheet. You can have sort of a whole cohort of students. If you're assessing, 50 students at once, you can see all of their performances sort of in a big picture view there as well. So, really our sort of goal with it is to make the solution as quick and as pain-free as possible, make it efficient, easy to work with, and hopefully, save time and money long term of, dealing with students that maybe aren't as suitable. We've got that information up front, and we can hopefully make your life a little bit easier through that.
There's two things. There's two things that you kind of brought up that I want to ask on. So one is pricing. So I'll bring that up up next. But before we hit that, the reporting. So you said there's a report that's out that you get to the 5 schools that kind of gives you the results of their test, and it kind of goes to where I was alluding in the beginning. Like, what are you looking for from a pilot student candidate? Like, what traits do you by any chance have a sample report you can show us, or kind of talk to us through like what is on that report? And that kind of leads into like the original question I had earlier, which is like, what personality characteristics of a person that's pursuing flight training needs to have. And I kind of mentioned the CRM, ADM stuff in here, but I kind of want to hear a little more, I guess, definite, detailed as far as like what actual attributes are probably the best that you've seen from a psychology standpoint. Is it a person that's very authoritative, or is it someone that's doing maybe more creative, or there's what type of traits do you think, and this maybe is opinionated, is really contributes to having the most successful pilot, or that can go through all the training? What type of traits would we be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's decades of research on this, thankfully, as well. So it's a topic that's already sort of really well established. So we don't have to necessarily guess what a effective pilot would look like. There's a theory of personality called the Big Five, or the 5-factor model. And these are kind of broad personality traits that pretty much cover all of the individual differences between us as humans. Really well researched, really well validated, and it really does tie into a lot of jobs, but particularly the pilot role. So what we see is that pilots are high conscientiousness, so that's the kind of follow through, that they're motivated, they have attention to detail, a strong sense of sort of duty and doing the right thing. They're people that follow processes and work hard and kind of commit themselves to their tasks. Low neuroticism, so that's those kind of emotional stability behaviors. So somebody needs to be stress resistant, they need to be low to feel anger or worry or concern, not too sort of self-conscious, so that helps with a stable sort of confidence and sense of self long term. Reasonably sort of high on extroversion there, so doesn't need to be extroverted in terms of being the life and soul of the party, but certainly, like you said, that kind of authoritative, somebody needs to speak up, they need to be assertive. If they're sat alongside a captain that's breaking the rules, are they going to speak up and share that information? Those are the kind of broad sort of things we're looking at. More specifically in terms of what ADAPT also looks at, because we do cover all of those things, but we also have, as I mentioned, the hazardous attitudes are in there. So we're looking at kind of risk-taking behaviors. And there's another bit that I think is quite cool as well, called preferences under pressure, or abnormal traits. So these are those kind of behaviors that tend to come out when we're stressed or when we're under really high pressure. They're not necessarily things that we show day to day when we're relaxed, but when you put somebody in a really high stress situation, sometimes all the behaviors that they've been trained on kind of fall away. They revert back to what feels most natural and most comfortable. And these kind of behaviors, it covers things like being untrusting. So somebody who is really guarded and maybe doesn't want to delegate or ask their instructor for help. Somebody who is really arrogant, and then you've got the overconfidence of I know best, and I'm going to dismiss your suggestion and just stick with what I know. Over reliance as well, so people that are maybe going to give too much to the instructor, kind of ask them to lead the way and not have that sort of initiative and their own kind of get up and go. So we're also looking at these kind of behaviors that you might not actually see on the surface until that point of pressure comes and somebody's in an emergency situation there. So those are kind of the broad things we're looking at. That's just the personality piece there as well. Of course, we want also that high cognitive capability, people that can think quickly and accurately, people that can balance multiple demands, ability to pick up psychomotor skills, all of those things that we're looking at there. And when researchers looked at pilots compared with your average members of the population, they score so much higher on these traits that I've mentioned. So they're much more conscientious, they're much lower on the neuroticism. And that's why it's really important to use aviation specific tests as well, because we want to compare that person's scores, not against the wider population, but just against that specific aviation population. So you can say, you know, this student is below average compared to all 500 other, 5,000 even other students in that kind of same position there.
How do you, this is more of a kind of a technical question. I don't know, it's not too technical, but how do you assess a test taker's ability as far as, you know, handling stress was one of the things that you mentioned, and then psychomotor skills? How do you, because I'm assuming this is on a computer, right? So are you like tracking their mouse or something like that? Or are you giving them 5 tasks to do at the same time and then making them, then timing them or something? How does that work? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that the last one's basically it. So one of our tools, we call it the fast test, and it is fast. It throws like everything at them at once. So they're doing, they're controlling an aircraft to avoid certain obstacles. They're answering kind of cognitive questions, so working memory and questions, things like that, on one side of the screen, and then at the top they've got a view of a cockpit with traffic going past. There's beeps and various voices that they hear. So it's looking at that ability to divide that attention. So we throw everything at them, see how they balance those demands. And then they do the test a second time as well. And we look at their learning and their improvement from attempt 1 to attempt 2. So that digs in a little bit to those psychomotor skills, particularly under high workload. But I think I mentioned earlier, we also have a couple of joystick tests as well. So work with any kind of joystick. So they're relatively easy to get set up. There's one, we call it the ball game. So there's like a ball that sort of flows around the screen and the individual has to keep it in the center of the target. So they've got to keep putting these inputs in with the joystick and keep adjusting and adapting when there's sort of like a wind blowing the ball and it goes off in different directions. So it's that constant hand-eye coordination, but again the learning as well. We want to see a nice learning curve that most people get their hands on the controls to start with. It's a little bit tetchy, maybe they're overcorrecting, but then hopefully as they get more familiar, we see that nice level of improvement there. So yeah, that's just a couple of ways that we assess those psychomotor skills there as well.
This is I don't know, this is me, my marketing brain going off here. So I know I see you guys a lot of times at different trade shows and all that stuff. You can bring a joystick out there and have the actual pilot test out there, and you can assess the flight school learners and see like, hey, are you actually worthy to be a pilot, and have them do the psychomotor test and see them fail. And you're like, huh, yeah, maybe not.
It's good. It's good fun. People get super competitive with it as well, which is always nice to see. Pilots are a competitive bunch of people by and large. So yeah, we see people fighting and coming back again later in the day and saying, I just want to beat my score from earlier. So that's always a bit of fun there.
I definitely would. If you had a joystick out there, I might just have to play the game with you guys next time we're at a show. All right,
we'll take you from that. Yeah.
There you go. We're at the last 10 minutes. Last question I had was kind of going to pricing. So we were talking about like the reporting and what the test is all about. Good stuff there. The biggest question every flight school owner or every business owner always has is their P&L and how that affects my P&L. So I'm not asking for specific numbers here, but can you give us some back of the napkin ranges of what flight school owners can expect if they were to implement this program?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the tests start from about $20. So, depending on how many tests you take, again, is it 1 or is it 5? Is it 6? We have discounts there that kind of stack up as well. So the more tests you get in the battery, the price does come down off those slightly, and also for large volumes. So if you're assessing sort of in the hundreds, that you get volume discounts there as well. So like I said, no setup fees, no sort of upfront costs, no retainers, anything like that. You can pay, you can sort of drop us an email we even have a self-purchase thing now. I think it's just you click one button, say I've got 20 students coming for assessment, immediately get access to 20 codes for them. So it is very much that pay as you go, and like I say, starting at about $20. So I think affordable for most flight schools. And when you consider how little those costs might be compared to the costs of students failing the training, or if something were to really happen that would impact on the reputation of the flight school, I think the costs are hopefully quite sort of palatable overall there.
That's very palatable. So I'm sure a lot of flight school owners don't know this, but I was referring to like how we do cognitive tests for our crew. So like I have whenever I have a job posting, I always put them through my self-built personality test. What was thrown to me earlier was the Colby test. And that was through my coaches and mentors to run the Colby test. And I'm like, I don't want to run that, but we still implement it. But that test costs $50 each. That's more than double what Symbiotics is asking. And I think Symbiotics does a way better job because you're talking very specific to flight training. It's not just a personality test. They have all this other stuff that's involved, psychomotor, stress testing, even physics and competencies and like math and stuff like that. It's also involved. So there's other personality tests that are out there and things that are used for jobs and stuff like that. This test, I think when I was working manufacturing, they had all the entire factory do, well, at least the management team, they had us do these disc type tests, and those are like $200 a test per candidate. So I mean, like, I think Symbiotics has a very palatable program. I didn't know. I thought it was gonna be like thousands of dollars. So yeah, that threw me out there. I think it's a really great opportunity for flight schools to implement. It's also, and one of the key takeaways that my team has told me about Symbiotics is because Symbiotics does this for the military and also for a lot of airlines too, the airlines employ very similar testing. So if your flight school does it from the step one already, the students already know what to expect. So when they go through your programs, private instrument, commercial, CFI, build their hours, they get their CJO, and now they're in process of getting their CJO for their airline regional career now. They're already primed. They already know how to answer these questions. They already know what to look for, how to prepare for the test. Obviously, I think instrument training is going to be very helpful with the stress testing because you're throwing so many things at the same time. There's communications on the radio. It's setting your navs. It's setting you're loading the approach plate, doing a briefing. There's so much stuff that goes on the instrument level. I think that's one of the hardest certifications for pilots after, no, CFI and ATP are also up there too. Private's also hard because it's the first time. They're all hard, but but I think instrument is very task saturating. Like that was when my brain felt like I would get out of training and my brain's like gush. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? So, yeah, highly recommend Symbiotics. So before we end here, we want to do a call to actions. Is there any last call to actions that you have, Creane? How do they reach you? How do they sign up for this? Do you have an email, phone number? What you got?
So I think the website link is down there, hopefully. So we've got contact details on the website. We're quite a small company, honestly. There's just under 20 of us, so we're very accessible. We can put a call in, get in touch with James or Lance, our sales team, and probably meet one of us psychologists there as well. Getting a consultation going. So please do, get in touch. I'm sure my marketing expert Kirsty probably has a few more links that can go up at some point, but I don't have them exactly to hand. But yeah, everything should be there on the website. And like I said, we've got lots of resources on there as well. There's client testimonials. We've put out some various ebooks about how to best assess the pilot competencies, how it all maps on. Loads of stuff on there that might be helpful.
Awesome. So yeah, if you are interested in implementing Symbiotics at your school, check out symbioticsltd.com. That's Symbiotics, Symbiotics, ltd.com. Meet with Christy, meet with Caroline. Great team over there. They have, I think there's 20, 30 people there in that group that's dedicated to providing the best testing for flight schools and students and pilots. I think they have a really great program. I see them every time we go to these shows. They're always out there. They're always sponsoring with us. They're always trying to provide value to the industry. Also, Christy's on the chat here, so if you, I guess she's your colleague. They're attending events globally, so make sure you follow their LinkedIn. So they have a LinkedIn page as well. Check out their LinkedIn there, and that's going to be awesome. So we're going to wrap up here. If you are a flight school or part of the aviation industry or anything like that, and you want to share your story, share your product, share your service, you think you can provide value to our audience, I highly recommend going to redruddermarketing.com, check out our podcast, listen to them, give us a call, 314-804-1200 is our phone number. You can also email us at info@redruddermarketing.com. We are on iTunes, we're on Spotify, YouTube, we're on all the platforms, so come check us out. If you are a flight school or an aviation business that's looking for help to grow and scale, you're looking for help on the sales and marketing side of it. I know we didn't talk about much marketing today. Give us a ring, 314-804-1200. Red Rudder Marketing has helped so many schools out there really become the authority in their local market through our digital service. We call it the Flight School Marketing System. It's a great system to help schools grow. So without further ado, we're going to end here. Thank you, Caroline, so much for joining us. It was a pleasure meeting with you today, learning more about Symbiotics and your program and how you're helping and impacting the aviation industry through your business. So thank you so much. We're going to end here. And if you have questions, by the way, make sure you send it to our email. We'll forward it to Christy and Caroline as well. And then, we'll take it from there. So see you guys around, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Flight School Aviation Business Podcast. See you guys around.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.